there's a financial question, is housing the right way to achieve financial independence? And then there's the emotional. The only thing I'd say on the emotional part, I think most Australians would feel that owning a home from an emotional perspective, a psychological security perspective, is a good thing, right? The question about it being the best financial decision, I think, is a separate topic. But in terms of that emotional security thing too, when people think about owning a home, you probably really need to think about it as owning a fully paid off home, right? Because if you have a big mortgage as you're trying to achieve financial independence, or you're a renter, you're always going to be exposing yourself to some kind of a danger in terms of losing that house, right? You know, people say, oh, if I'm a renter, I could get kicked out by the landlord. And it's like, well, if you own your own home and you can't pay the mortgage, you're going to get kicked out by the bank. So that's, I think, where I'd say is like that emotional security part doesn't come from having purchased the home. It does come from that inevitable point of paying it off. So if you don't think you can pay it off when you want to achieve financial independence, then it might be a little bit trickier to see it as safe.
Yeah, it definitely makes it easier if you can get to a state of whether your personal goal is semi-retirement or whether it's complete financial independence. It often is easier if you can get to that point with a paid off home, because obviously that gives you a lot more certainty over your expenses and how much you need to cover. And obviously the rest of your lifestyle costs will not be as high because you've removed housing from that situation. So it makes it easier. So that's definitely important to consider. But I suppose that's the key on how it actually helps you become financially independent. It's not actually the house itself. It's really the fact that you've removed, if you've paid it off, you've removed a very large expense from your life. It reduces the level of investments that you need to become financially independent and cover those other expenses.
If I could ask you, Dave, just from that emotional, psychological security perspective, forgetting the financials of it, do you consider a house valuable to live in from an independence point of view and a security standpoint?
Well, it is a sense of security and emotional comfort, I suppose, because you own the walls around you and you can change the property as you like, and you can't be kicked out unless you obviously can't pay for the property anymore. So it does in that sense, but personally, I don't really feel that way. I don't feel any different now living in this house that we own versus the last house that we rented. I really don't feel any different about it whatsoever.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I know that's actually very unusual, but I haven't met many other people that feel the same way, but I don't have those same feelings about home ownership and certainty and all the rest of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm a 30-year-old right now who's never owned a home, but as someone who's looking now, it does matter to me in terms of the security of the tricky thing about renting for me over the long term is I don't get paranoid about people kicking you out or something, but at the end of the day, it is weird knowing that the base of your home, maybe the base of your family's home, is really the discretion of some landlord that you might not even know sometimes. So I do care about it personally from that perspective. Like there is some security knowing you're a little bit more in control with your fate, particularly if you paid it off. But one area that I might maybe disagree with a lot of people on is I get less fussed about the whole, oh, you can change your house if you own it. So I think for me, the realities are, if you're in a rental, obviously you can't go and paint the walls or something in a lot of states. But also if you're a homeowner, it's very difficult to just go and add an attic or add a pool to your home. Like all these things generally need some kind of strata, landlord, council kind of approvals, which I think, you can obviously do a lot more in your own home. But to some extent, I do worry that kind of idea, your own home, you can do whatever you want. Rentals, you can't do anything. People make it a little bit binary.
And I suppose the other angle to that is that with your own home, yes, you're able to change it any way you like, and you're able to control what the property looks like and all the rest of it, but you're also responsible for 100% of the maintenance and everything that might go wrong and all of those costs associated with changing the property. Whereas with renting, you're not actually responsible for any of that. You don't have to cover any of those maintenance costs if something goes wrong, which something always inevitably goes wrong. So there's almost always a counterpoint to each aspect, each pro and con of buying or renting.
Yeah, for sure. And I think at the end of the day, with everyone listening, they're going to have a call as to whether owning a home matters to them or not from a standpoint, and that's just personal. There's not really a lot to argue with there. I think the really interesting part for me is definitely the financial element, because I feel like I'm always learning about how does, from just a pure economics, money perspective, how does home ownership or a lack of play into my long-term financial goals and all the different ways you can approach it. And I love that too, because there is some truth to it, like obviously there are some preferences here, but at the end of the day, money kind of speaks for itself, and everything is super specific, different cities, different people, different backgrounds, different savings. But I think it's a really fun topic to truth seek in, as complicated as it is.